Welcome, welcome, welcome. Merrill Chandler here, your host of the Fundability podcast. Okay, this episode, you guys, rocks. There's a brand new federal law called the Corporate Transparency Act, or the CTA. And I've got my guest you're going to meet in a moment, Bob Bluhm of Asset Defense Team, and he's going to walk us through. There's even a tutorial. He's going to walk us through how to complete 5 to 10 minutes of an application, but every single one of us have to register our entities, INCs, LLCs, among others. So watch, enjoy, take notes, take screenshots, and we're going to use his tour, how to complete this, as part of our tutorials and all your resources. I will see you on the inside.
In the constantly changing world of fundability, the big question is this: how are entrepreneurs and real estate investors like us, ones who want to grow our businesses and who are tired of paying for really expensive alternative lending, how do we tap into the most inexpensive money available and do it without the hassle of typical borrowing? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. Welcome to the Get Fundable podcast with your host, Merrill Chandler.
All right. Welcome, 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 everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is the Fundability podcast with your host and guide to the Fundability universe, Merrill Chandler. Today, we have spectacular guest. This is literally the pointy edge of the sword. I've got Bob Bluhm with me here today, and he is legal defense for businesses. And I met him through my family mastermind, and we attended an event where he spoke about the CTA, the Corporate Transparency Act. That is our subject today. I've been talking about it all the last couple of weeks in socials about this event. So we're going to be talking specifically Q&A deep dive into what is the Corporate Transparency Act. What does it mean? What are the penalties? Because they are pulling out the stops on penalties. And how do you actually file? Prepare yourselves for a tutorial. Welcome, Bob. Glad you could be here with me.
Thank you, Merrill. Happy to be here. And you're exactly right. This is going to be sort of a workshop, if you will, exactly how to file this particular report. But before we go there, I want to thank you for having me on. And we did meet at the Family Mastermind, but we also met at the Leadership Boardroom, if you happen to remember that.
Oh, that's right. You know what? I had so much fun at that event. That was a lot of fun.
Very good. Yep.
Now, please introduce yourself. My crew already knows that I let everybody introduce themselves, but this man, his presentation, I told him to bring this very presentation he trained me on, to bring it to you, which is he's going to do. So give us a little background, Bob. Why you? Why you?
I wonder that too. Why me? I don't know. But I'm an attorney and have been for a lot of years. I'm based in Dallas, Texas, and I'm what is called an asset protection attorney, but actually started out as a trial lawyer. So I was in court, know my way around the courtroom very well, and but switched sides many years ago because I found that suing people and taking money from them was a whole lot less satisfying than keeping people from having to give
I can
money.
imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah, really. So that's what I do now is I protect people's assets through trusts and limited partnerships and limited liability companies, corporations, and we review contracts, et cetera. The full gamut of legal work. So Merrill, if you'd like, we can dive right into.
I want to. Most of this, you guys, we're going to be tiny, and he's going to share his screen. So prepare you for that which is to come, because we are with this is amazing. I'm so excited for him to share this with you guys.
All right. Well, let's see if we can do that and make it work. So here we are. We're going to share this screen and let me know if that is up.
Can you see all of that?
All right, that's what we'll do. This is going to be an introduction to what is called the Corporate Transparency Act, sometimes referred to by its acronym, the CTA. And so what is the Corporate Transparency Act? Well, it is part of a larger bill that was passed with bipartisan support, unfortunately, in 2021, and it is now law as effective as of, I should say, January 1st of this year. So we're about 21 days into it, based on where we are. Who's going to run this thing? Well, it's part of the Treasury Department, I should say a division within the Treasury Department called FinCEN, and that stands for the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Now, that's a lot of scary stuff. Nobody here is committing a financial crime, and yet we're being monitored by the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or its acronym FinCEN. So the law is now in effect, and it applies to both brand new entities as of January 1st, 2024, and also existing entities that existed prior to January 21st, 2024. So that's kind of the dividing line, is what happened before January 1st or what happened after January 1st. And you're going to see that that is a very important date. And so why do we have this law? Well, the idea behind it, which quite frankly, I don't think is going to be very effective, this law is not really going to be effective, is it's trying to determine who really owns and benefits from these corporations and entities that people set up. In other words, they're trying to get at who is what is called the beneficial owner. And the reason is they do not want assorted bad guys like drug dealers, sex traffickers, terrorists, and other money launderers hiding behind shell corporations and concealing their activity, their illegal activities, because the federal government doesn't know who they are and what this corporation is supposedly doing. So this law was passed to require all kinds of entities to file with the federal government this report revealing all kinds of very, very personal information. Now,
I want to jump in there. Bob, because this is for our tribe. Another reason this was backed by the banks. The bank lobbies were huge in their contribution and pushing for the CTA, because as we've discussed in all of my in all of the social media and all the trainings that I do, all the learnings that I provide, is that lenders' greatest loss in business lending is to stolen identities added to a brand new company. And so the beneficial owner appears to be this fake ID that was stolen. And so if a loan or credit cards are obtained, that's one way in which losses occur for the banks. And so so part of this why is that beneficial ownership. And as we do in our Smart Co and QFE strategies, guys, we clean up all the databases and make sure that the identities sync up with us. And that's why we're getting such high funding amounts. And so I just wanted to add that to the why. Fundability, the banks want to know who has a beneficial interest in this company. Anyway, or in a particular company in your QFE.
Okay, well, good. And I think that's very important background for people to understand. Of course, the banks could have, just required this information if they were going to make a loan to somebody, but instead they didn't want to do the work, so they pushed it off on all the small business owners. So that's neither here nor there, but it is what
right.
we have. So here are the reports, and this is key to understand. So really jot this down, if you will. Brand new entities created as of January 1st, 2024, have only 90 days in which to file this report, and that is 90 days from the date of creation of the entity. All right. Existing entities that existed prior to January 1st, 2024 have a full year in which to file. Now, a lot of people may be thinking, ooh, I just dodged a bullet, I got a whole year. Don't think that way. Get your report done early rather than waiting, because once again, it's easy to forget about this. And then, you're scrambling at the end of the year when everything else is busy. Get the report in now so it's done. So these are key dates.
Brilliant.
Before January 1st, prior or after January 1st. All right. The penalties for failing to file are very severe. There are civil penalties if you just kind of forgot or you didn't get it in on time. That's a civil penalty. It's an oops, sorry. Well, they're going to fine you $500 per day that you should have reported after the 90 days. If it goes on for 5 days, you got a $2,500 fine. And by the way, there's no cap. So this could really bankrupt people and impair your ability to repay loans and meet any other financial obligations. Now, if somebody's going to take the attitude of, hey, I'm just not going to file, I refuse to file for some ideological reason, problem is that is a willful violation of the law. And now for willful noncompliance, they can fine you $10,000 and put you in jail for 2 years. So they're serious about this. And we should be serious about this.
One of the things I love about this, Bob, is this is kind of like the how they got the gangsters back in the 30s for tax evasion. This is a great way to be able to sew somebody up if they didn't file, and put them away for something that wasn't, that otherwise there's no intentional malfeasance here, right? It's just that that a willful noncompliance means that they can put somebody away. So, but pay attention, you guys. This is no joke, and we're going to get into the fundability aspects as we get deeper into this, but keep watching, because he's going to give a tutorial step by step how to complete. It's a very simple filing. That's why they're being so heavy-handed with the penalties, because it doesn't take you 2 hours to finish this. It's moments, but you've got to file. And we're going to be using this actual video for our tutorial for you guys to be able to see. So continue, Bob.
Will do. All right. So who's got a file? Well, there are 3 possible persons who must file, or entities. One is the reporting company. So in other words, if you have an LLC, a corporation, a limited partnership, or even a business trust, and that is any entity that was created by filing a document with a Secretary of State or an equivalent of a Secretary of State. So in Arizona, we don't have a Secretary of State. We have the Arizona Corporation Commission, which serves the same purpose. There may be Native American tribes under which you would have filed, and that qualifies as like a Secretary of State. So any entity that is created as a result of filing a document and has to have official government approval, some level of government approval, that is a reporting company. Now, people will say, well, what's not a reporting company? And for example, a trust. Most trusts are not going to be reporting companies. Now, there are some trusts that are created by filing with the Secretary of State, such as various business trusts. But aside from those, the vast majority of trusts, such as living trusts, irrevocable life insurance trusts, these are not filed with a Secretary of State, and therefore they are not reporting companies. They're not companies at all. But the vast majority of what most of us have will be a reporting company, and we're going to have to include that information. Now, I'll show you what that information is. The second person that has to file is the company applicant. So I'll give you an example. Merrill, if you went to a lawyer and said, would you create an LLC for me? You would be a company applicant because you directed the lawyer to do so, and the lawyer who then filed with the Secretary of State and became the organizer of the LLC, they are also a company applicant. So both of those folks would need to file as well. All right. Okay. Now, the big issue is who's a beneficial owner. And this is where there are a lot of unanswered questions, but just to create a gloss, a very general answer, a beneficial owner is one of 2 things. If you own 25% or more of stock in a company, or a partnership interest in a limited partnership, or a membership interest in an LLC, 25% or more, you are a beneficial owner. Now, what if somebody's going to try to get a little cute with this and think, well, I'm just going to own 24%, so I don't have to report. Well, the problem there is the second test will capture you and require you to report, and that is anybody who has what is called substantial control.
Substantial control.
Now, in an LLC, that would be a manager. Now, in an LLC, the manager doesn't have to actually be a member of the LLC.
Correct.
But in that case, if they're a manager, obviously they have substantial control. A president of a corporation, vice president, secretary, treasurer of a corporation has substantial control. A director of a corporation has substantial control. A general partner in a limited partnership has substantial control. So you can see that this is a pretty broad category, whether somebody owns 25% or not.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would like to add for our tribe that, guys, once again, how many times do our smart codes, our QFEs are designed to have sole ownership so that so you will file this for your LLC, but notice 25% is exactly a banker's requirement. I'm just throwing in where their influence is. The banker's requirement is anybody has to be on an application who owns 25% or more. And so that is vital for us to understand in the CTA, that the banks are looking for beneficial ownership of somebody who would actually need to be also on a credit application. We want sole ownership of our entities so that nobody else has to be on this, and spouses each have their own QFE or smart co. So Bob, brilliant. Thank you.
Well, very good. One other thing I should mention is if someone has what is called a member managed LLC, now all of the members are managers and have substantial control, regardless of whether they own 25% or not. So this is a tricky area as to who is a beneficial owner. But the bottom line is, because the penalties are so severe, if you have any question about, gee, am I a beneficial owner? Maybe I'm not, maybe I am. File as a beneficial owner.
Right.
Just do it, because
especially since it's not hard and it's
Yeah.
not open. Everybody can't see this database, you guys. It is still
right.
relatively private.
That's right. It is. And, the government already knows more about you than your mother knows.
So does LexisNexis and the business credit bureaus, right? So we're already hit.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all report our income to the IRS every year. The government already knows. So anyway, there are some companies that are exempt. Now, there is a list of 23 exemptions, and there are, of course, mind-numbing definitions of what every one of these are. And just to give you an example of what is, in their view, a large operating company. Well, here's a stripped down definition, if you will. It's a company that has 20 or more employees in the U.S. Now, if you've got a bunch of employees in the Philippines or offshore somewhere, it doesn't count.
You don't qualify.
Now, these have to be U.S. employees. Previous tax return had to show more than $5 million in gross sales or receipts. And you must also, these are and, not or. So you must
Right.
also operate from an owned or leased physical office in the U.S. So you can't be running your business out of your home or shared space like a WeWork space. Okay. So
Right.
you got to have a real business is what they're looking for. So if you have what is called a large operating company under the statute, you do not have to file the BOI report. But the vast majority of small businesses are not going to be able to meet this requirement and will have to file. All right. So who's a beneficial owner? Well, we talked about that a minute ago, 25% or more ownership, or you exercise substantial control. Now, it's a better way to define who's not a beneficial owner, and that would be a minor, someone under 18, an agent or a nominee of a company, who's merely just a representative of the company, but really doesn't have any real control, an employee of a company, even though they may be in an important position within the company, if they're really just an employee receiving a salary, they're not a beneficial owner. An individual who just inherits maybe some stock in a company, well, they're not a beneficial owner. And then a creditor of the reporting company is not a beneficial owner unless the creditor meets the definition of a beneficial owner. And we'll go over roughly what that could be. All right. But most creditors, just a lender, will not be a beneficial owner.
Correct.
So what's going to qualify as being a beneficial owner? And I told you this is where it gets confusing and sticky. So I'll go through these various categories with you. Company equity. So this is a really obvious one. If anybody owns stock, membership interests, or limited partnership interests, or some other form of beneficial interest in a company or an LLC, a limited partnership, you are a beneficial owner because you have.
Even if you're under 25%, but you are a member in it.
Well, no,
Okay.
you'd have to have that 25% threshold.
Okay, very good.
To own the company entity in order to qualify as a beneficial owner under this particular test. But remember, there's 25%, there's
other
substantial ownership test. Yeah. So what about indirect ownership? Well, let's say that you own the Blue Circle, the holding LLC. But the reporting company is a company that owns your rental property, but that rental property LLC is owned 100% by the holding LLC. So who is the beneficial owner? Well, because you own the holding LLC, which in turn owns the reporting company, you are still the beneficial owner.
Yes.
All right. I hope that was clear.
Very clear. Even if you own, if instead of that 100%, if that said 25% of that rental company, then the holding company is still a beneficial owner, and therefore you as the owner must file.
Correct.
But 24% or lower, not necessarily filing for the rental property LLC, correct?
Yes, unless you
meet
also
other
have,
beneficial owners.
unless you have substantial control. There you go.
And in this case, you would. Okay, very good.
So someone who's receiving profit from the company could be a beneficial owner. And this would be, so in other words, you don't have an equity interest. You don't own 25% or even 20% or any percent. You have no equity ownership at all. But nevertheless, you have a side agreement that says you're going to receive some of the profits of the venture. That could be a joint venture agreement that says so, a profit sharing agreement, or any other contractual agreement, which shows that you're supposed to receive income from this property or this venture, even though you're not a shareholder.
Yeah, and I want to drill down a little tighter there. This does not represent, the joint venture agreement does not represent a JV where you are selling something in your company. Like if you're doing a real estate and you do a profit share of a deal, that does not qualify as a beneficial ownership of the company. It's literally just you made a deal and you're splitting the profits of a particular property or venture within that company. But if you actually have a profit share of the company, now you are a beneficial owner.
All right. Well, we'll let people ruminate on that for a little while because this is going to get a little complicated. Company options. You might have an agreement or a contract that allows you to buy an interest in the company at a certain point in the future or when certain targets are met. That could be giving you beneficial ownership. If you're a trader, in stocks or options, and you have puts or calls or straddles, then you can be a beneficial owner as well. You'll have to think that through. Convertible interest. So this is where a creditor could be a beneficial owner, and that is when a creditor has the right to convert maybe a debt interest or a loan interest into an equity interest. That could be, so that's convertible interest, which means you can be a beneficial owner in that instance. So you can tell we're getting pretty far out on the limb here,
right,
trying to cover all these different situations because this is what people are going to run into. Probably not the vast majority, but somebody may find themselves in that category. What if you have a trust and then your trust owns a beneficial interest in a company? Then you are a beneficial owner. So in other words, you have a trust, and then the trust is the owner of the LLC. Now you are the beneficial owner. You have a beneficial interest and must report. All right. Any other interest is what they added.
I love this. And everything else we didn't think to specify.
That's right.
Also.
That's right. That's you. So once again, I think the better rule of thumb is If you just can't figure it out and you're not willing to spend hours and hours or hire a lawyer to figure it out, just go ahead and file anyway as a beneficial owner. It'll keep you out of trouble. And maybe you didn't even have to file. You know, one of the features of this filing is you don't have to say why you're a beneficial owner. You don't have to say,
you
I'm
are
a beneficial owner because I own 25% or because I have substantial control. You don't have to specify that. You just file. All right.
Yeah, we're not outing ourselves, guys. You'll see when you fill it out. You're not outing yourself of what beneficial interest you have. You're literally just saying, "Yep, me too." So
That's right. That's correct. So, you know, we talked about the first of those beneficial owner tests. You have 25% or more ownership. Well, let's say you don't have ownership or 25%. So this is the second test, and that is, do you have substantial control? So what is considered substantial control? Well, it's not very well defined, as you can tell, but this is what we do know. If you're a senior officer of a company, regardless of whether you're a secretary, a treasurer, a vice president, or a president, you have substantial control. All right.
directors as well, correct?
Directors as well, correct.
Or INCs. Yeah.
Yes, yes. If you have a member managed LLC, all of the members now have substantial control because they all share in the management of the LLC. If somebody has authority to appoint or remove a senior officer, that would be a director, by the way, or a majority or dominant minority of the board of directors. Once again, you have substantial control. And then if anybody has the ability to direct or determine or decide over important matters affecting the company, once again, that's sort of the catch-all provision, you have substantial control. All right?
Excellent. Rather than not file.
Correct. And then who does not have substantial control? Well, once again, it's employees or other people within the company who just receive a salary, even though they can make some decisions. All right. So how are we going to file this BOI report? Well, if you look at the URL, it's www.fincen.gov/BOI, and that stands for Beneficial Ownership Information. All right, so I'm going to go to this website now, and I'm going to stop this screen share. We're going to go there, and we're actually going to fill this out. So we're going to work on this, and hopefully you can take some screenshots of this, and you'll see how we do it. So I hope you can all see my cursor. We're going to go to File, and we're going to file a report using the filing system that the government has created. So over here, to the left, it says, do you need to file a BOIR, which is the Beneficial Owner Information Report? Click here. So yes, we're clicking there. Now, there are two ways you can do it. And frankly, I haven't been able to get this first one to work. I think it's still a glitch in the system. If you want to, you can prepare a PDF and leave it and come back to it. And then when the PDF is completed, you can then upload it and submit it as your report. So you may not have all of the information that you need. The first option then would be your better approach. If you have all the information, like EINs and everything I'm going to show you in a minute, you can go ahead and click the second box. This is the one we're going to do today. And then at the end of it, you would end up just submitting it and you're done. You can't go back and save anything. You'd have to start all over again if you're starting on this second one. So here we go. We're filing the report. And the first thing they want to know is, what type of filing is this? Now, the good news is, if it's an initial report, we're not going to do this every year. We file once for a corporation or a LLC or partnership. All right. There are other reports you may have to file. Go ahead,
Quick
Meryl.
question. If it goes defunct and we reactivate it, do we have to refile?
Oh, boy.
Or is it like an EIN that is just attached to that entity?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure FinCEN has even thought that through.
Right.
But in which case,
reactivate them.
Yeah. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say you had an entity, but it went dormant before January 1st, 2024. You reactivated it after January 1st, 2024. I would consider, in order to stay safe, to consider that a brand new entity as of January 1st, 2024, and you have 90 days in which to file this report rather than a full year. I would just think that would be the safer way to do it. Now, what are some of these other reports? Well, if you had some erroneous information, which you just made a mistake, you would then correct the prior report. That's B. If somebody, let's say you have 2 or 3 members in an LLC, or well, no, it could be even 1 member of an LLC starting out, but now you want to add somebody wants to drop out of the LLC, you have to update the prior report. And so in other words, they're trying to make it so, Merrill and I can't just form this nice company together. We report ourselves, and then we want to bring a money launderer into the LLC. Well, yeah, we'd have to report.
Damn it, foiled again.
Yeah, there you go. But you can imagine how bad guys are going to try to think of getting around this.
Right.
And they're going to think, well, we'll just bring the drug dealer in later. Okay, well, then you'd have to update the prior report. And then what if you have a newly exempt entity? I'm not quite sure what that would be.
Well, like I had $4 million in revenues, 20 employees, $4 million. But this year I did 5 million. So now I qualify. Now I'm exempt, right? So now I can now, or we just moved into a warehouse instead of everybody working at home.
Right. Or you had 19 employees and 5 million in revenues, and you had a share an office space, but you just added the 20th employee. So now you're exempt. All right.
Now we're exempt.
Yeah, all the crazy scenarios. So they just want to know what type of report is this? This is going to be initial report, and this is the kind of report most of us are going to be filing. So we now click the next button, and now we don't need to do number 3 or 4. Now, number 3 allows you to get what is called a FinCEN ID. And if you've got a lot of entities and you're going to be filing a lot, such as we do, our company forms entities as a core part of our business. We create thousands of entities every year. We're going to have to file a lot of these. And we have, all of our paralegals have gotten a FinCEN ID, which it gives you a number and you can now plug it in, and it saves you from having to fill in a whole bunch of information because they've already got the.
So this is the individual who's filing, not a FinCEN ID for the entity itself.
That is correct. This is the company applicant.
Because organizers have to also file, and we do shelf companies. So I need to have my team get a FinCEN ID for me, and then we'll, like you said, we put that ID in, and it saves us time. Excellent.
That's right, and you're going to see where that does save us a lot of time. That's coming up. So now in number 5, we have to type in the name of the reporting company. So this could be Merrill Chandler LLC. All right. If you have a trade name, a DBA, doing business as, a fictitious name that you've registered, then you would include that in line 6. Now, one of the good things about this website is they will have a little drop-down box or an explanation for every one of these. If you just put the cursor over the particular box, it'll tell you what they're looking for. Go ahead, Merrill.
Yeah, and belts and suspenders, guys. Like Get Fundable is not a registered DBA, but we are Fundability Inc., but we're doing business. We're marketing as Get Fundable, website getfundable.com. So I'm going to ask our tribe to include even unregistered DBAs in there just for belts and suspenders, because if somebody's looking at you, especially a lender is looking at your DBA, registered or not, and they ping the CTA, that we don't want them seeing a no there. We want them seeing what you're doing in the marketplace as part of this, as part of the filing.
Okay, good. Very good point. So now we're at how are we going to identify this reporting company? And there are 3 different ways. You could use the EIN for the company, which is the taxpayer identification number. Or you could, if you're using a company if you're essentially using your social security number, you could include that if the entity doesn't have an EIN. An ITIN is for a non-resident of the U.S. And the ITIN is an individual taxpayer identification number, which is kind of the equivalent of a Social Security number for someone who doesn't have a Social Security number. And then foreign is another category, which is really not going to apply to most people here. All right. Now, but you can read about it. So if it happened to be a foreign ID, then you would have to select the particular country. And once again, there's a drop down, but this is inactive as of in this particular filing. If you had filled out number 8, then number 9 would open up. Let's say we have Merrill Chandler LLC. That's a made-up company for now, but we filed it.
Actually, I own Merrill Chandler LLC, so there's that.
I didn't know that. But assuming you filed it in the U.S., you would click United States of America. And let's say, I'm making all this up, Merrill. Let's say you filed it in Alabama. So there we go. We filed it. And if you
go Red Tide, Crimson Tide, is that Alabama?
Yeah, it is.
I don't even know.
If you happen to create it under a tribal jurisdiction, you would fill in C and D, but most people are not going to do that. What is the address of Merrill Chandler LLC? And you need to give the actual principal place of business address here. All right, and that is you can tell it's required. All right, and once again, if you want to know really what do they want to know, the drop down will give you more information. So now we want the street address, we want the city, state, county, and also, was it filed in the U.S.? Yes, once again, it was. Okay, so we filled out that information about the reporting company. So now FinCEN knows which company are we referring to for. All right, now line 16 is really important because this is the demarcation between before January 1st or after January 1st. And this is going to determine when, what's your filing deadline. Is it 90 days because it's a brand new entity after January 1st, or do you have the full year in which to file? So let's not check this. Let's assume this is a brand new entity. All right, created after January 1st, 2024. All right. If it were an existing entity created before January 21st, 2024, then all of this part 2 would go away. So in other words, the company applicant does not have to report who they are if the entity was created before January 1st, 2024. All right. Okay. For brand new entities, the company applicant is going to have to report. So let's go through this. Just so people know. So if you happen to have a FinCEN ID, you can include it in 18, and then all the rest of the information does not have to be filed.
Yes.
All right. So that's going to save a lot of people some time if you created multiple entities. So now this is the company applicant. They want to know what's your last name, your first name, middle name, and date of birth.
And by the way, for our team, you guys, this is where we put your PBID, your personal borrower identity, your borrower application identity. So whatever you've chosen as your borrower application identity, we want to sync up because this is now one of the 19 databases that are going to be pinged for accuracy. And so we want to make sure that your identity is spectacularly clear. And so your PBID or your application identity goes here.
All right, good. Very good. So now remember, this is about you, assuming you created the entity, you organized the entity, or you directed someone to do that, such as you're an attorney or a CPA. So what's the address? Your address. Here's the business address, or is it a residential address? They just want to know. Once again, the country of jurisdiction, the state, and zip code. All right.
Now, is that the current address? Because right now we're filling out the individual information, or is this the address type of the entity we're registering for?
No, this is the individual now. This is, let's assume, Merrill, you directed your attorney to file this, create this entity. So you're a company applicant and the attorney is now a company applicant.
So it would be their business address. Okay, got it.
Yes. Well, but you're a company applicant as well. All right, because you told them to create this entity. So now you would be filling out your information here, and then they would be filling out some information as well.
So we could instruct our crew to use their registered business address for this entity as the address. If it's a true business address, they could use that instead of their residence.
They could. All right.
All right. Very good.
All right. All right. So now we've given our address. They know who we are, except they want to know even more who we are. So now we have to identify ourselves so we could give them a photocopy of our driver's license or our passport. Or if, and I represent a lot of foreign investors who invest in U.S. real estate, they will have to give me a picture of their passport and we'll have to include that. All right. So those are the three ways, or a fourth way, a state or local tribe issued ID. Those are ways you can do it. So let's assume it's Merrill's driver's license. Merrill now has to put in his driver's license number here, the state that issued it, and that gives them that degree of information. All right. Now that was
and then do we upload it? Let's go back to the one, the very last one. It said the document all the way to the bottom. All the way to the bottom, it says identifying document. So we just drag and drop to that picture to that, or we could go find it on our desktop. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I just wanted this to be meticulous for everybody who's watching.
Yeah, very much so. Now, this is, let me give you all this. We're going to go back. This was line 33 and all the way back to line basically 19. If you had a FinCEN ID, then all this gets filled in and blacked out and you don't have to fill it in. All right.
That's going to help my team who buys the shelf companies.
Yes. It will help.
I'll just give them mine.
It'll save a few minutes. All right. So now we're at the beneficial owner information. So look up at the top, if you will, if you can see my cursor. We first filled out what kind of file this is. Is this an initial report, an updated report, a corrected report? That's what we already did. Now, who was the reporting company? That's Merrill Chandler LLC, and we reported all the information, the address about the reporting company. We just did the company applicant, who was the person who actually organized the LLC or directed them to do so. So we're that far through, and now we're at the point, part 3, the beneficial owner information. This is where it gets trickier. So this was easy stuff up to now. Okay.
Now, if we are either an S corp or a solo sole owner of an LLC, 100% owner, and we put it all of our information under company applicants, do we also need to apply under the beneficial owner as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you do.
Listen to that, everybody. You're both not just an officer in your INC or a member of your LLC. You're also a benefit. They want to know both your legal position and your financial position.
That's correct. And let's assume that in Merrill Chandler LLC, I'm making this up completely, but let's say you have a wife and 2 children who are also members of that LLC. You would have to go to this box and add all 3 other people as beneficial owners of this company. All right. Assuming they actually have 25% or substantial control. All right. So now, if
just because they're a beneficiary of my life insurance policy or beneficial, they wouldn't have to become a beneficial owner until my demise, and then they would be beneficial owner if they currently are just in my will, not on the paperwork as a beneficial owner. Correct?
Well, that raises the question, because if you remembered back on who is not a beneficial owner, that little slide, it's someone who inherits an equity interest by inheritance.
They're not a beneficial owner.
They would not be a beneficial owner at that point.
And a minor.
And a minor. There you go.
Okay.
All right.
So those are not, but the second they took control of the company, even if it was being run by the officers, they would then have to be added, and we would update the filing for this entity because they are, because they become a beneficial owner.
That could be, once again, this is a very squishy area, very squishy. But once again, I think the rule of thumb applies, and that is, when in doubt, go ahead and file.
Yeah.
to avoid the possibility of penalties. So once again, if somebody has a FinCEN ID, you can insert it in line 36. That'll save you a little bit. In line 37, they want to know, are you an exempt entity? And if you're exempt, well, then why did you have to even file this much? I don't understand that. But line 38, this is if you are a beneficial owner, now your last name, first name, middle initial, or middle name, and date of birth must go in line 38 through 42. Your residential address. Now, this is where they want your home address, not a business address, city, state, zip code, etc.
Now we're talking about the person rather than an organization who might be organizing the entity.
That was the company applicant. That's right. The one who organized it. Now, this is you because you are the owner of this entity. Therefore, you're a beneficial owner. And now this is what the law is really trying to get at. Who's the beneficial owner? So now, once again, we have to identify ourselves. And you may be thinking, well, I just did this a minute ago as the company applicant. Well, yes, you did, but now you're also a beneficial owner. So you're going to have to give, once again, your driver's license, the identifying number on the driver's license, or your passport, or if you're not a resident of the U.S., a foreign passport, state, etc., and show the picture of the passport, your driver's license here. All right?
Excellent.
And that pretty much completes the form. Now, once again,
so that's in less than a 15-minute form, you guys, but you have to do it for every entity of which you that you have a beneficial ownership interest.
That is correct. Now, the real time-consuming part may be collecting all of the information before you start this filing. Now, once again, if you wanted to do the PDF filing, which was the first option, then you could stop, go back, find the EIN, get your driver's license picture, then come back to it and complete it. This way, the one we did was you got to submit it right away. I mean,
in real time.
Yeah, in real time. So in that case, if you're going to use that option, you got to collect all the information, have your driver's license picture all ready to go in a PDF form, et cetera, et cetera.
Good news is my tribe has, since we file credit applications all the time, similar things are asked for. So it's on their dashboards, or they have them already in their application file ready to go. So this will be easy for my crew.
That is great. That is great. Well, then you're going to certify that the information's true, correct, complete. You're a human. And after we do that, this activates, you click next, and you will get some form of receipt that proves the filing was successful, et cetera. So you hang on to those because those may, we don't know exactly who's going to ask for those yet, but they can end up being very valuable.
Now, and I do want to point out, guys, that I wouldn't put it past the banks to be asking for that receipt as part of your filings in uploading documents or with identification or otherwise. They may be asking for that receipt. But to be clear, and I don't know if you want to show that, Bob, but to be clear, your name will be on the receipt, but the entity you registered will not. So you need to handwrite or sticky note it, or however if you've got several. I've got dozens of shelf companies. We have to file with the receipt and actually on the PDF edit it so that we can identify that particular number, because they don't do that for us. Have no idea why. Maybe it's part of the corporate transparency privacy part, but just make sure that you identify that receipt and link it to the entity, especially if you have multiple you're filing for.
That is right. That is correct. So we finished the actual filing, and that's all there is to it. Now, I don't mean to minimize how important that is or how difficult it is, but nevertheless, we just went through the filing, and you can see it's doable and not impossible by any means. So no one should be
15 minutes for the first time. And guys, if you do I'm going to recommend to my tribe, if you have multiple just click the FinCEN, get the FinCEN ID, because you're going to be filing more in the future. And if you've got more than one, just get the FinCEN ID, fill it out. It's a 5 to 7 minute completion time. If you've got the FinCEN ID, you can bang them out and then identify the receipts accordingly.
There you go.
Woo!
That's correct. All right. Now, if you've got some questions about this, on the FinCEN website, they've got a lot of resources. So here you can look at, if you can see my cursor over to the left, small business resources, and we can, oh, excuse me, I guess I was looking at the reference material, and then they have frequently asked questions. And believe me, it can be mind numbing if you really want to dig into that. Over here, small business resources. If you click on that, you get a compliance guide. And once you dig into that, it starts talking about, does my company have to file it? Have to report its beneficial owners? Short answer, yes. Who is a beneficial owner? And it goes through all of these issues in a lot of detail if you've got questions. So there is a lot of good guidance on the FinCEN website. They also have step-by-step instructions. So if you want to, once again, print that out, go through it if you need to, there you have step-by-step instructions. Now, because this is new, scammers are already trying to make a buck as a result of this. And be aware that FinCEN will not reach out to you. They will not send you emails. They will not call you on the phone. And so there are scammers out there already. And this is a scam letter that one of our clients received. And they said, is this real? You know, they're talking about this new CTA and the fact that I have to file a BOI report. But take a look at it. It's from the United States Business Regulations Department. There is no such thing. And they've got some phony looking, thing with the American flag up here and Business Regulation Department, et cetera, nonsense. And this is probably a phishing scheme because they want you to scan this and then they'll get all of your information. So, and as you can see there, go to brdportal.us/portal. That's their website. It's not a government website. All right.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So beware. And Merrill, if any of your clients send you something, hey, I just got this. Is it real? Answer, no, it's not real. Now, does filing this report destroy any anonymity that you might have? And the short answer is no. And you may say, well, I just revealed all this information. Why didn't it destroy my anonymity? And the short answer is because the question is, who's got access to this information? And it is going to be held within the government itself, within FinCEN, and then on a need-to-know basis, they may share it with law enforcement. Once again, if you're suspected of being a bad guy, they may share it with state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies. But once again, it's on a need-to-know basis. If the banks are asking for this, then you would have to agree to release this information.
Just like your credit report, you signed to release permission to pull a credit.
That's right. That's right. Now, the real thing that we're worried about when we're talking about anonymity is, does a plaintiff's lawyer have the ability to go online and search and discover all of this information? And the short answer is no, because be aware, if you didn't already know this, if someone is thinking about suing you and they go to a plaintiff's lawyer who is going to work on a contingency fee basis, which basically means they're going to take a percentage of what they collect, the plaintiff's lawyer doesn't want to spend all that time and money going after you unless they are sure that you've got some assets to take. All right. So they can do what is called a pre-litigation asset search. And there are all kinds of different companies that do this. And they can find publicly available information such as your home address, what properties do you own, what businesses do you own, et cetera, and they get
everything.
Idea.
All from LexisNexis. Every one of those companies search LexisNexis databases, and everything you've ever owned in the past, much less currently own, are all listed there.
That's right. So the question is this information going to be listed there? And the short answer is no. This is going into think of it this way. You reveal all kinds of very personal information on your tax return that goes into the IRS. and the tax returns are not publicly searchable, and nobody can have access to those. Now, bad guys within the IRS will leak those from time to time to embarrass certain rich people, but nevertheless, unless something goes badly wrong, this is private information that you're submitting to the government. Okay.
And credit applications are far more invasive already. So,
yep. So you still have anonymity. So let me remind you once again, if anybody's thinking, I really don't want to do this, do it anyway. The civil penalty is $500 a day for each day a reporting violation occurs. That means if you're on day 91 and you should have reported yesterday, you've got a $500 fine, and it's going to go on until you actually file. So once again, when in doubt, file. Criminal penalties for willfully refusing to file or willfully filing false information, up to $10,000, 2 years imprisonment. So once again, file if you have anything in doubt. Okay. So if anybody has any questions, more than happy to answer those questions. This is our contact information. Merrill can answer lots of questions as well, but that's who we are. We're Asset Defense Team, and that is the kind of business we conduct. And so you're welcome to get in touch with us. Just let us know that you came from Merrill, if that's the case, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. We don't want to just field questions from, whoever.
Randos.
But, yeah, if you're part of Merrill's
Bob.
tribe, we'll be glad to answer questions.
I'm telling you, Bob, that brilliant. See what I mean, guys? Did I deliver? Did I over deliver? Because I had him do the exact same presentation that I saw because it was so detailed and meticulous. So, Bob, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, any asset defense requirements or needs or Q&A, take a screenshot, guys. Get Bob's information. He is in my mastermind. He's like the go-to genius of this entire, there's 300 of us there, and he's the go-to genius for all things asset protection. So I highly recommend at least a consult if you're looking how to move your chess pieces in the right way to make sure that nobody gets to your king. Then give him a call. Bob, once again, thank you so much for joining me. This has been amazing, and I appreciate you being here.
You bet. Thank you, Merrill. Take care.
Absolutely. All right. Be well, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Get Fundable podcast. Please leave comments because Merrill would love to read about your aha moments from this episode. And be sure to visit getfundable.com to read our blog, get important links, join our community, and much, much more, like ordering Merrill's tell-all book that is changing the world, The New F Word. And you got to tell your friends about this podcast because we want them to get fundable too.